kind of portends, and we'll see, potentially a Brandon Aiyuk trade, because what's going to make Aiyuk traded? Somebody's going to have interest, but the price is going to have to come down. You see what I'm saying? I don't think the 49ers are going to get a high price, but how motivated are the 49ers to make a deal at any price? How motivated are the 49ers to shake off money? That's what it would be. They would, if they moved Aiyuk, if they got somebody even at a loss, what's the lowest compensation you would take to move to save Jed a bunch of money and to hit the financial reset, as Lynch said? I mean, Lynch said it. He laid it out there. I mean, can we play the cut? I mean, it's an unbelievable.
I will play the cut, but I want to share the screen first on this, because this is from Schefter on Brandon Aiyuk. Adam Schefter on 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. With the financial situation that the 49ers are in, which is an interesting way to say that, the financial situation that they're in. What situation? I mean, if you were just looking at the cap, they're doing fine, right? So that's interesting. With the financial situation that the 49ers are in, they're open to listening on just about anybody. If there's a team out there that is willing to take on the Brandon Aiyuk contract, I'm sure they would listen. That's really, really interesting. So Schefter's saying, if someone's willing, and this is kind of what I've been saying and what I've been trying to convince you, Dad, I don't know if a team's willing to take on his contract, but the way that Schefter lays it out, man, it kind of seems like the Niners are willing to move on from Brandon Aiyuk for not much, but it's dependent on the other team being willing to take on that money.
Right. No, and the question is, would you take on, is there a team out there that wants this player, doesn't need to contend this year because he's not going to be 100% this year, but a year from now, he might be back to 100%. And then you've got a receiver under contract. It would be a team that would probably need a receiver and has a hard time attracting receivers. And that's why the Patriots and Raiders, I think, do make a lot of sense. I really do. And the Raiders do have 3 6th-round picks, and they have Michael Mayer.
But look, the reason why I'm skeptical, and I think a lot of people are skeptical, is because
of the money.
It's the money,
down body.
Right, exactly. And we're talking about humans with jobs here. A GM that trades for Brandon Aiyuk and wastes $110 million of his owner's money and gets a player that is nothing to that caliber, and you give up something, and even in a worst case scenario, the Niners draft a great player with a 5th-round pick. If it's a 5th-round pick and they draft a great player, that might be a fireable offense for a GM. So it's going to take balls, man. Like, I don't think, even though it's like, oh, bro, it's Brandon Aiyuk and you're giving up nothing, you're giving up $110 million. It's money, it's cash.
Of course. And your owner has to be on board. I mean, you don't go down this road without your owner being totally on board. Here's the deal. The guy this is the commitment. This is his normal price. This is the price because they're looking to offload him. What do you want to do? Somebody, and it's really like, if you said to me, what are the odds that somebody will bite? I don't know what the price tag is. You know what I mean? The price tag, I've got a broken down, brand new Bentley. What is somebody willing to offer me? Well, I mean, what am I willing to take? It depends how bad I want to offload it. It depends. And what you just referenced, this tweet about the salary struggles. It's like the 49ers, they're obviously in a cash poor situation, largely because of the great players that they drafted, developed, extended. So Joe G says my volume's a little too low compared to yours, Kev. Maybe you should dial down a little bit, Kev.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think that let me turn on my audio a little bit. I think that it's really interesting if you look at the wording of this, because again, like this just confirms what Kawakami was saying and what Grant was kind of saying earlier last season. Credit to both of them for having the inside info. But it's just like, with the financial situation that the 49ers are in, they're open to listening on just about anybody. That's interesting. If you look at the cap, they're one of the highest cap number teams in the league. They have over $50 million in cap. If we've, for the last year or 2 years, we've only exclusively been talking about cap numbers, right? Oh, it's this cap, it's backloaded this, it's backloaded that, it's, it's the best way to do it, yada, 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 which is partially true. But then no one, because it's impossible to know, no one's thinking about Jed's wallet, thinking about how every time they backload a contract, he's shelling out tons and tons of cash. So it's just interesting to hear the phrasing with the financial situation that they're in. What are you talking about? If I was just looking at the cap, they're green, man. They're good. Everything looks amazing. Everything's, butterflies and rainbows. But like people have been saying now for a little bit, it's a cash situation where you gave Brandon Aiyuk a lot of cash and a lot of long-term money. So yeah, it's an interesting thing coming from ownership. And I wonder how that's going to play out, because when you have your boss telling you got to do something, I mean, you got to do something, right?
Well, and it's not that they don't have cash, because they're about to give Brock Purdy $100 million himself, right?
Right.
So,
it's not that they don't have. It's not that they don't have it. It's that it's like there's some feeling that they don't want to keep giving it out or something like that, right?
Well, they've spent. They're about ready to give him probably $100 million guaranteed. So they're just trying to offset that by shaking free of the players that are non-essential, and receivers making big bucks are non-essential in today's NFL. There's a lot of free agent receivers. There's a lot of, now this particular draft, I don't think is stellar for wide receivers as much as it's been in previous years, but with so many teams running the spread, every year you're going to have lots and lots of wide receivers coming out of the college game. It's just the way it is. But the question is, what do you do? Because, it's almost like the 49ers need to trade Aiyuk more because he can't help them in what looks to be the biggest year of the regime's existence, because there's no question that Jed was willing to cut the check and do anything those guys said, if they said it was the right thing. And now, after they win 6 games, it's pretty clear that they've gotten called on the carpet, and there's been a belt tightening and a refocusing, and we're now prioritizing Jed's expenditures a little bit. We're going to be a little bit tighter with Jed's money, and we're probably going to try to help Jed out by getting off of Aiyuk if they can. Now that's the question, if they can. But then the question is, the one thing is, it could be a non-story. They could be telling everybody. I mean, it's either a non-story and they've told everybody, you know what, we want a 1 and a 2 and this and that, or it's a freaking huge story and they've told everybody, give us a 7th round pick and he's yours.
And just take the contract.
Right. We don't know what the cost of this thing is. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's we're getting into interesting, very, very interesting time right now. Here's another one, just kind of related. This is by Coach Yak's Twitter. Matthew Berry, on what he's heard about the Brock Purdy contract negotiations while at the NFL Combine. They are working towards getting a deal done with Brock Purdy, but there's no guarantee on a long-term deal gets done this offseason. I hear both sides are still fairly far apart. That's not, hey man, if that's not a good thing to hear if you're a 49ers fan, that your franchise quarterback, you're far apart on a long-term deal. I mean, this cannot be a situation where it's a long holdout, or I don't even know what this would turn into, but I mean, you're not,
I do know what it would turn into. It would turn into another lost year. That's what it would turn into.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, I just think at the end of the day, I think, before last season, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan were made men. Maybe not made men, but they were like, they had the reins in their hands. They had full trust from ownership to do what they want, whatever they needed to do to win, because they had been so successful without getting the Super Bowl, but they'd been successful. And then they kind of took control with the Brandon Aiyuk situation, took control of a lot of other situations, and it just wasted a ton of money and got them worse. So I can kind of understand it, I guess, from Jets' perspective. But yeah, this is not if this is true, I mean, they could be far apart today and get a deal done tomorrow. But if this is true, it's not a good thing right now.
Well, I mean, they got plenty of time to get it done, but I mean, they made it seem like it was the two sides were, basically there was some, they obviously had traded some early numbers. So if they're that far apart, then I'd be a little surprised. But it's imperative that they get it done. I would say even a bad deal. Here's the rub, and this is what's going to make it so complicated. John Lynch is getting dragged a little bit because of I'm sure with ownership because of the Aiyuk contract, because of the clearly Bosa's side won in the Bosa deal. He's the highest paid guy for the second year in a row, non-quarterback, I believe. So those deals, these are big expenditures. The Debo extension, if you believe Tim's reporting, it sounds like ownership may believe that they didn't get great deals on some of these deals. So in the midst of a belt tightening, you're going to try to get a long-term extension done with your quarterback, and your recent reputation is that you can't get things done on time, and it's like imperative that you get it done by, I would say by the draft, probably before the draft, whenever the OTAs start. And it makes you wonder when you look at the way they're going about this and the potential for the holdout and all the needs they have. Is this year ahead going to be they're back in the Super Bowl mix, or is that an unrealistic expectation at this point? Because the fans want to be back in the Super Bowl mix, and everybody's going to be, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. But you know what? We're a long ways away from that. And I'm not talking about calendar time. I'm talking about roster talent. The Niners have all kinds of holes, and they're not going to get there with the snap of the fingers.